So I'm back, so let's continue. Now, I'm still going to talk about the mapping more. I do want the game to take place in a lot of the city-driven areas because, well, this game is a reimagining of the second Doom game, and the second Doom game took place on Earth, so why not? But I don't really want the game to be, what is it? I don't want it to have abstract areas from Doom 2 like Map 23. I do want this game to be more realistic. I expect to have levels where you might enter a building at times, or sometimes you're in a city. It's very akin to like Crysis 2 pretty much. Speaking of realism, I actually do want to talk about that part of this game. It will be more realistic just like Doom 3 was, but it will still have that arcadic element that makes Doom basically. Okay, time to get into the fun part. The gameplay. So the basic gameplay for Doom 4, it's a run and gun shooter. That's really like, the main core of what makes Doom so much fun, and it's really the thing that's going to make it very arcadic compared to the other shooters out in the market. There will be changes from the previous games. I will admit I want to make this change because of the controller's limited buttons, and that is just to have the ability to carry only 4 weapons. I think this may be intimidating for old school fans, but the classic Doom games and Doom 3, they used a quote-unquote tier over tier weapon setup. Basically, every weapon you get, they are like stronger than the previous weapon you had. Like the chain gun in Doom 3 is almost like an upgraded version of the machine gun, or the double barrel in Doom 2 is like an upgraded version from is upgraded from the shotgun. A lot of its software's old first-person shooters really relied on this method, and I think it's time to break it up and try something new. So the game will only allow you to carry 4 weapons, but there will be more weapons to use, and I also want to have I also want to make every weapon to be usable and have their own category, like the close quarter weapons, the shotgun, double barrel shotgun, chain gun, submachine gun, whatever, stuff like that. And I do want them to have their pros and cons. Chain gun could be like a turret weapon where you rip it out from the turret's position or whatever. I don't know what they're called, but you know what I'm trying to talk about. And it could be really good for close quarters, but it's so heavy, and the appearance is limited, so you're gonna have slowed down movement speed, and you won't be able to use the weapon that often in the game. And there's no ammo for the gun, so you pretty much have what you have essentially. Then you have the double barrel shotgun. It's good for taking the stronger monsters out. It's a light weighted weapon, so you move really quickly. You move at normal speed, and the ammo is reliable, but every time you shoot it, you gotta reload it, and it doesn't have the same amount of range compared to the chain gun. And since the gun forces you to reload the weapon, it's not like a fully auto weapon, so it's not really good for crowd control. I definitely want every weapon from the Doom sandbox to return, except for some of them. I do really think I don't want the Soul Cube to come back, because that was like a Doom 3 type of thing. And the same thing for the Unmaker from Doom 64. So those weapons won't be back. I also might not want the chainsaw to return, because I do feel like it's kind of a gimmicky weapon. Even in Doom 1 and 2, it wasn't really that usable. You just use it to mess around. I'm aware that in Doom 3 it was a lot better, but let's face it. If there was a monster invasion, would you use a gun or a chainsaw? I would rather use a gun. So, yep, I don't want the chainsaw to come back. With that said, I do want all of the weapons that I have not mentioned to return, like the classic shotgun, the BFG 9000, one of the most iconic weapons in the Doom franchise, rocket launcher, etc. Weapons like those. I also want to improve upon things like, instead of having grenades, I'd rather have a grenade launcher, because guns are more funner to use than throwing grenades. I've always wanted like a bolt action rifle like the Kar 98K or something like that in Doom, and maybe an assault rifle included to make Doom have somewhat more of a mid-range weapon choice. They will follow the same weapon philosophy. They gotta have their uses and similarities within the roles. Like the bolt action rifle could probably have a better zoom feature than the assault rifle, but the assault rifle can be more usable in close quarters because of the fact it's a fully auto weapon. But they're both, designed for mid-range encounters. I know I can probably think of some more weapons for the Doom sandbox. I would most likely include 4 new weapons at best if I ever, make a new Doom game. But I really think it's good to bring back majority of the weapons because they all have their own unique features and touches, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the weapon discussion. And I will continue on how the gameplay will be played by the player's interaction with the main character. Okay, it's going to be more realistic, so don't expect Doom 1 and 2 movement speed, but I do want the character to move somewhat fast, maybe Halo 1 movement speed, but slightly faster. I don't think I want sprint. I just don't think it's going to work on the higher difficulties, and I do want the player to really focus on the combat than, trying to run away from the enemy. I also want to include okay, this is gonna probably be controversial. I want to include iron sights and regen health. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Are you kidding me? Regen health and iron sights in the Doom game. Well, the iron sight features, it won't be like Call of Duty where it increases the weapon's accuracy. It's gonna be the same as the hip fire. I'm doing this just to cater the newer gen players where they might not be used. They might not feel how this shooter is familiar to the shooters they play to this day, but you really don't have to use the iron sights like you do in Call of Duty. This is just really a preference type of thing. Like maybe you want to play a more tactical and slow down your movement speed and aim speed to to take out on this encounter, or you can just go in there and kill everyone like how you did back in the older days of the Doom games. Now regen health, I might as well talk about the skill level differences for this part. Okay, regen health is only for the 3 of the 4 skill levels I'm including in Doom 4. These 4 skill levels are exactly the same titles from Doom 3. Why Doom 3? Well, I just think they are more relatable, quote unquote, in this day and age when it comes to FPS skill level names like medium, hard, hardcore, hell, insane, etc. It just feels more up to date compared to classic Doom's skill levels. I'm putting regen health for people who aren't used to the health and armor pickups, and I promise you, the game will still be challenging even with this setup. It's all about experimenting within the mechanics, and I would try to still make it challenging for the old fans so they don't feel like I'm dumbing it down for the masses. Even though I am trying to make this appeasable to that crowd, obviously, but I'm still trying to make sure it's keeping true to the roots of Doom. Speaking of keeping it true to the roots, notice how I said there's only one skill level that doesn't have regen health? It's Nightmare difficulty. Nightmare will be hard. It will probably be harder than a lot of the id Software games out there, period. I took some influences from Bioshock Infinite's 1999 mode. I wanted this mode to be a throwback of how FPS games were like in the older days. So you guessed it, guys, there will be health and armor in this game and you will have to look for them. Nightmare will be the ultra violence skill for this game. It's gonna throw in the most amount of enemies on the screen. It will replace weaker ones with tougher ones, even from the very early levels. I also want to do special changes too, like you could get this certain weapon for this part because it was designed for it, but on Nightmare you don't get that weapon. You have to strategize to beat it with whatever arsenal you have. And since this game might be way too challenging at the very early stages, I might have to give players quicker access to stronger weapons to compensate it. So what that means is I'm respecting your intelligence as a player. I expect you to know what you're doing when you play this skill level, essentially. Keep in mind, I'm still trying to make the average Joes or people who aren't aware of the game to be able to jump into the game, and Marine is really designed for that. I think Marine might be more intense than most games on normal skill, but it won't be much harder. You can pretty much relax to it. And then you have, Recruit. Well, what can I say? It's the easiest skill level in the game. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you want to play the game while getting hammered, then go ahead, because it's going to be stupidly easy, really. And that's all I have for today. I will talk more about the skill levels in the future, because I think I'm almost done with it, but not completely done with it. And then I'll jump onto the enemies and whatever stuff I feel like I have to talk about, pretty much.